What's good, yet, and welcome to How to Pity Manipulate in 5 minutes. We go over all the possible scenarios and all the tips on how you can take advantage of this minor summoning mechanic, because at the end of the day, RNG is still king, and no matter what you do, you can always only nudge it in your favor this much. So, base goal is getting the limited unit at 200 and also getting as many legendaries as possible along the way. How do you do that? And that is by obviously summoning on the Diao-chan banner for 200 times so you get her. There's one point though, and that is if you do get a Diao-chan on your 200th summon on the banner, it also resets your pity, which means you want to take advantage of your pity. So let's start with an example of 0 pity, alright? You're starting out on 0 pity and you're doing 180 summons on the Diao-chan banner and you do not get a legendary. Instead of doing the rest of the 20 and getting your Diao-chan, what you should rather do, or let's say 170, it doesn't really make a difference, just as far as you're comfortable and as far as you have like extra summons on top of 200. Because if you only have 200 summons and if you can only get 200 summons, always do the 200 summons there to get the guaranteed. You can only pity manipulate with extra resources you have past 200. So in this example, we are at 180 summons and we are going to swap to a secondary banner, like for example the Hex and Twyla banner or a general 2x raid up or whatever banner is currently active alongside your limited unit. The way pity works is once you hit 180, every single summon after is going to give you a 5% higher chance to pull a legendary on top of the 0.5% base. So 181 is 5.5, 182 is 10.5, 15.5, you get what I mean. And then basically you're going to be summoning on this banner until you get your legendary, which is then going to reset your pity all the way from, let's say, 195 all the way down to 0 again. But the pity does not affect your accumulated summons on the Diao-chan banner, which means now with a pity of 0, you can do 2 10 pulls, guaranteeing your Diao-chan at 200, giving you effectively 1 extra legendary. But keep in mind, this is by no means an all-powerful technique or it's going to always work, because RNG is again a thing. Let's take an example of you starting at 0 summons, going into the Diao-chan banner, and then getting a legendary at 70. If you get a legendary at 70, that means you're now 70 out of 200 for Diao-chan and your pity is reset. So you, for example, have to go in, do 110 extra summons, putting you to 180 summons total, but your pity is only 110, which means you now, because you pulled a legendary on 70, you now need an additional 70 summons to use on, for example, a Hex and Twyla banner to once again reset your pity once you hit around the 180 mark around Diao-chan. There is a couple options, or for example, let's say you pull a legendary on 30, you pull a legendary on 150. All of a sudden you're 150 to Diao-chan, back to 0 pity, which means you can do what? 2 10 pulls on Diao-chan realistically, and then you would have to spend a lot of summons on the other banners. So again, keep in mind you need a lot of summons to have the freedom to pity manipulate. And if you're really tight on summons, if you can barely hit the 200, or if you just want to hit the 200, or once again, if you want as many Diao-chan copies as possible, it is always a viable tactic to summon everything you have on the limited banner, because keep in mind, you can only get the limited unit on the limited banner. So no matter how many times you pity manipulate on Hex Twyla, it is never going to be a Diao-chan. And that's the basics. I guess at the end of the day, we could probably have a look at a couple more examples, like for example, starting on high pity. If you're starting on 150, once again, you want to get into the 170 to 180 area of pity, because again, you have like the soft pity thing. I guess you could never really swap, but there's also like a bit of stimia, a bit of prejudices there, that if you get to like 170 you should already swap, but technically speaking, as long as you get to 180 you still don't have any rate increases. So yeah, let's say you're 150, you do 30 summons on the Diao-chan banner, and then boom, you swap to Hex Twyla, get your legendary, and then you continue onwards. Or you could also at 150 just do the 50 summons on the Diao-chan banner. See if you can already get a Diao-chan and finish this easily.